Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Win a Pageant Jumpstart. Today is a very special day because we get to meet an incredible gal, Amanda Brady. All right, so Amanda Brady is the current Mrs. Utah American, and she just won a few weeks ago. And I've been working with her for several months privately, and she's had massive growth. Now, she came to me already extremely active in her community. And as we were drawing out the different pieces of what she's currently involved in, as we were trying to put together her heart story and her legacy project and her promise proof plan and all of the elements that make up a really excellent pageant performance, as we were putting all of these pieces together, I was realizing like, this woman is unbelievable. And I even said to her, like, so Amanda, you're involved in like everything in your community. And she's like, yes, actually, a lot of people will reach out to me as a strategist for their charitable initiatives, like for their events, for their fundraising. She's like, I'm excellent at fundraising. And who would have thunk it, you know? And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I learned so much about her, and she has wisdom beyond her years. And you'll know the difference between knowledge anybody and everybody has. Wisdom is something that you gain through going through difficult experiences, rising above them, overcoming, and coming out the other side. And that is what she is going to share with you today. So I'm so thrilled to welcome to our show today my friend and client, Amanda Brady. Thank you, Amanda, so much for joining us today. I so appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yes, you look great. The crown looks excellent on you. Yes, it's so beautiful. I am so proud of you. And it's been just so much fun to work with you over the last few months in this journey to this title. I know that you have had some experience and pageantry, and that led you to where you are today, but we changed a lot. You really went all in these last few months to be here. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, can we talk about where you were before you and I started working together? Share a little bit about your pageant experience up to that point.
Yeah, so this was actually my third time competing in the Utah America pageant. So I felt like there really wasn't a lot for me to expand on. And that's where I was really struggling, is because I knew if I wanted to win, if I wanted to be crowned, that I had to figure out a way to expand. Well, in my head, before you and I had met and talked, that meant doing more. And so I already feel like I do a lot. I am very passionate about helping my community. And so I just kept adding things to my plate that I would fall in love with, but then I didn't understand what to do with it. And so I just figured if my resume was bigger, the more I put on my resume, the more I put on my paperwork, that would get me to a crown. And then you and I talked and met, and we realized, although those are important, but we took it a completely different direction and wrapped it all together in a nice little package, like you said. But that's where I was before, just thinking I had to do more and more, and not understanding how to really narrow it in and focus it better.
Yeah, that's and I'm grateful that you're willing to say that, and this is why I wanted you to share this today, because you're going to be such an inspiration. After people listen to this, they're going to realize like, am I doing that? Because you're right, over the course of 4 years, when everyone's just feeling like, oh, you need to just do bigger, and you can't understand
Right.
why is it that girl, she's done all the numbers and things that this person is doing, and this person over here, and it feels like the pressure of I'm not enough, I'm not
Yep.
doing enough, and that can weigh so heavily on you, when in fact that is not a strategy. That is an operating from a place of fear. I have to do more, I have to be better, instead of saying, hang on a second, you actually are enough. You actually can do this title. We just need to package it. We need to brand it in a way
Correct.
that's going to set you up for success. So let's talk about the moment that we met. Can you share a little bit about the story? How did you come across Win a Pageant? How did you and I connect? Give me a bit about that story.
Okay, so how I actually even heard of you was through one of my previous Mrs. Utah American girls. Her name is Rochelle Moore, and I was chit chatting with her, And she said, "Oh, you should log in." And she's got a ton of free content. She's got a book out. Go through all of her free stuff. I'm telling you, there's a ton. And I was like, at this point, I literally will read and listen to anything if it will help me. And so I ended up logging in, and I read your book really fast. I went through the Promise Proof Plan, and I can't even remember what I purchased initially. It was like some quick package or a free deal where I was able to print out like a workbook and things like that. And so I went through all of that, and it was getting so specific with me and asking deep questions, even though they're not really deep, but it was just making me really have to focus on like being specific. And I was kind of lost at first because I knew what I was trying to achieve and what I was trying to answer. But because I was all over the place and doing so much, it was really hard for me to narrow down my promise proof plan because initially I kind of felt like my funnel was way too wide.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when, and then I think I messaged you and I set up a one time call or something to that effect. And beyond that, I just knew after that first phone call with you and I, where you just kind of laid it out for me, and you're like, "Oh no, I get it. I totally see your vision. I see what you're trying to do, and this is what you need to do." And then that's when you were like, "You need to work on your promise fruit plan. We need to, kind of funnel you down." And that's when I understood that you saw my vision and you were able to explain it to me in a quick and easy way that helped me to be able to see past my own insecurities. And that's when I was like, okay, we're a team. That was the end of it for me. But it was just another pageant sister who all the free content, like literally there's so much out there that's where I got started.
Wow, that's so cool. And I love that you are like, look, I'm going to consume everything. You were
Yeah.
coachable. You showed up coachable. You're like, let me,
It's so
at this
important.
point, I'll change anything. Clearly, I'm doing
Yeah.
it wrong. There must be something out there that I don't yet know. And so you showed up coachable. And for people that aren't coachable, there's no opportunity to change strategies. They just want to keep doing more of the old strategy that wasn't working, and they think like, oh, if I just do it harder and if I just do it more, it's but when you change strategy, you are able to now say, actually, this is easy. This actually
Yeah.
becomes a lot smoother. And
Yeah.
so we were able to capture your vision. We were able to say, okay, what if we da 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 da? What if we did focus on this and focus on that and
Yeah.
focus on that instead of trying to do all this stuff? I'm curious if along the way, because at the beginning you saw this is not a short path. It's going to be something that
Right.
requires effort. It's going to be something that, if I want a legacy project and I want to build this up, you at that point had talked about podcasting, and your husband had started a podcast, and you're
Yeah.
like, I know it's not
Hmm.
simple. It's hard work. And you were like, really, a podcast? Like,
Yes.
that feels like hard work. Tell me what your hesitations were about going all in. Like, what might have held you back from that before you decided, okay, I'm ready for this? What were your hesitations?
It was my limiting beliefs on my own. It was my own insecurities. It really was. I was worried about throwing myself out there, about doing this podcast and then not having it be very good. And I was worried that I would do all of this work and then what? It just wouldn't work. That's what I was afraid of. But it wasn't that the outcome wouldn't work, it was that I wouldn't be enough to complete it. And so when I finally just stepped back from my own insecurities and my own self doubt, and I just said, you know what? This is where my heart is. This is on my heart for a reason. And I just have to trust. This was a huge, like, I just threw my hands in the air and I said, God, you put this on my heart for a reason. And I just need to have faith in myself. And that was honestly a huge turning point for me because I finally dug in deep and I trusted everything in my soul that I was enough. And I am not very good at anything that is related to computers or like honestly my podcast is not the top of the line, but I am doing it. I am doing all of it, and I'm proud that I learned a new skill and that I got out of my comfort zone to do it. And that was such a stepping stone for me personally, because that honestly is what the pageant is about. Is it's about overcoming all of those fears of stepping on stage and all of those fears of interviewing and being out in the public eye. It was a huge growth moment for me.
And that's, I had a mentor right before I launched my book. I had a mentor tell me, my ugly book is better than the book that you never wrote. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, dang, that's a thing. Like you have a podcast. I remember that call where you were like, okay, Alycia, here's the thing. Like, I know about podcasting. I know it's a lot of work. I'm not a techie person. And I was listening, and it was funny because I remember listening. I was just letting you express and letting you express. And I was like,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I've got it figured out for you already. Okay, it's called anchor.com, da da da. And I just like went through
Yep.
the thing, and I was like, here's what you do. We're going to make it really easy. It's free. It's this, it's it. And we just like simplified the path. And you were like,
Yes.
oh, okay, so maybe I actually can do this,
And that
And
was huge for me because you laid it out and you put it into baby steps for me personally, which at that moment, that is exactly what I needed. Because I could not, all I can see is this huge task, and my brain was on overload. And when you broke it down, you're like, hey, this is the bio. This is what you're going to ask. This is what you're going to do. You simplified it for me and put it into baby steps. And then we hung up on that call. And I think it was like the next day, I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I just hit click and I dove right in. And so that was very, very, very like a huge turning point.
and I always say every person should have a coach in their life. And a coach
Oh,
can take many forms, but
yeah.
I like a formal relationship where somebody is basically, what I call it is like, and this is kind of how I feel, is like I think of like a Britney Spears or like Beyonce, and Beyonce does not live her life without somebody being like, here's your
Oh,
breakfast. Okay. And
yeah.
here's where you're going. And here, put these earrings on. Okay. And now we're going to
Yep.
go. And I see that person as like the handler. It's like that person is so important to the success of the woman in the crown, because that person is the one saying like, I prepared this for you, take these steps. And it makes the
Yeah.
person in the crown able to take those steps, and it makes it that much light. And one of our coaches, Nancy Lyles, says there is no uncoached winners. And I believe that that is so true about
Mhm.
just about any person achieving success. They have somebody else handling them, like as their handler, and it's not a bad thing. It's a support system of people saying, okay, here's what you need, here's what you need. And you were so great about actually taking those steps and saying like, okay, I've got this. Like, I'm just gonna do exactly. I often will say that my success comes from being like a monkey. When somebody says, Alycia, here's what you do, I just do it. I'm like, is that what I should
Yeah.
do? Okay, do. I just follow the instructions. And when you follow the instructions and you don't let the fears get in the way, and you don't let the excuses or anything, and that's exactly what you did. And Amanda, what was awesome is you did it every single week in
Aw, thank
and week
you.
out, and you did it every single week. And that's the difference between the girl in the crown and those that aren't. That because just the
Yeah.
knowledge in itself isn't enough. You have to actually do the work, and you did. And that's why you're sitting here right now instead of anyone else, because you said, I'm doing this. And someone else sure is like, da da da, here are the steps. That's of
Yeah.
course. There's no uncoached winners, right? Everybody has that person that says, here's what you need to do. But then you actually have
Right.
to do it. And you did, Amanda, and you did it brilliantly, obviously.
Thanks.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about some of the things that you achieved. What do you, I mean, obviously, you have the title, you are wearing the sash and the crown. Yeah. So obviously, you achieved your title, but my heart knows what your heart knows, which is it's really about so much more than just getting the win. Can we talk a little bit about the new vision that you have for Be the Good and some of the things you've already put into place as a part of your legacy project?
Yes. So first off, when you that was actually something with your training that truly struck me is because I this year, so this was my third time competing, and I honestly sat back and I was like, "Okay, I am going back for another round." I knew I was going to compete this year, and I turned to my husband and I just said, "I don't know. Should I really do it again? Should I really do it again? I did well last year, but should I do it again?" And he goes, "Amanda, what's going to change with you? With or without the crown, what's going to change?" And I told him, I said, "Honestly, nothing." I said, "I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing the sponsorships and all those things." But it was one of those moments that I finally had to step back and I said, with or without the crown, I I am who I am. And that was a huge point for me that I realized that with the crown, though, I could do more. And so that was one thing. That's if I can tell everybody one thing, it's that you have to understand, you have to just be true to who you are with or without it. And I knew that even with I didn't have it, I would still continue on. It just wouldn't be as accelerated. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now with the crown, what's the plan? So Be the Good is my legacy project. And the legacy project for me was also, I was going to say this, that was a huge turning point with your training, because the legacy project was something, when you said that, and I read that through your book, my heart exploded. Because for me, this is not a platform that I stand on. This is truly the legacy that I want to leave to my children. Is I want them to understand that you just have to be a good human and that you just really have to be a part of your community. And so that's part of it too, is that I just felt that was so important going
Yeah.
forward.
And
But
that's, I just want to pause for a moment and share with our listeners that that's the legacy your mom left for you in a
yeah,
different way. Could you share your heart story?
I can. So I'm like, and I will try not to cry, but so Be the Good is my legacy project. And that came from a story from my mother. My mother was diagnosed with schizophrenia dementia when I was a young adult, and she was sick my whole adult life. She ended up passing away from it. It was, God, it's been probably 8 or 9 years now since she passed away. And I went to visit her in her care center, which we, did every once in a while. She did not know who we were. She didn't recognize anybody. And I walked in, and the first thing she said to me was, "Oh, you are beautiful." And it is a moment that is ingrained in my soul. It it just was this woman who is sitting here literally dying and can't even care for herself, but yet she thinks to compliment a stranger. And it just reminded me of who she was, because when she wasn't ill, that's who she was every day. And I truly want to carry that forward forever. And I want everyone to understand that you can have a lot going on and you can be physically dying, but you can still show a good example and show up for others in small and simple ways. And it really does impact huge.
Mm-hmm. Yes, to be the good you want to see in the world. Yep.
Yep.
And that's the ripple effect that you are creating with your legacy project, is helping people
Yep.
see how they can do that, and not just through the podcast, which I would love for you to share a little bit about, but could you also talk about the social media challenge?
Yeah. So, yeah. So now going forward with the Mrs. Utah American title, the goal for Be the Good is to just grow the Be the Good community. And the goal is through the podcast. So we have the Be the Good podcast. And then we also do a weekly Be the Good challenge. So the Be the Good challenge every week is posted on Sunday, and it's small and simple acts. Every week is something different, something from help your neighbor with yard work. I think that was the one this last week. Or pay for the person behind you in line in the drive-through at Starbucks, or the soda shop. Something as simple as write a note and leave it in a library book that you return to the library for a stranger to find. Those are my challenges that we do. And then the goal is to just see these small and simple acts of goodness with their ripple effect moving forward.
This is absolutely, I'm loving it. I just for a moment got lost in your Instagram. It's so pretty. If you're not following her, I already put the link in the description. So y'all ought to follow her. It's mrs.amanda.brady. And of course, she also has a Mrs. A Utah American account.
Yeah.
But her social is stunning. And also, all of the Be the Good challenges are on the Instagram account. What I love about this is that it is fully accessible to people, no matter age, no matter like walk of life. It's not things that cost a ton of money. It's not like you have to donate even all that much time. It's like, can you smile at somebody? Can you just pick up sticks for your neighbor for a little bit? Could you, and like the one that I see on here for week 14, Be the Good challenge, is to be a bucket filler. And I'm like, wow, all these things, what they do in the world is so powerful, because it's even from a stranger, when they smile at you, when they fill your bucket, when they give you a compliment, all of those pieces add up to feeling great about yourself. And we know that not everybody floats through life with a smile on their face. A lot of us are handling a lot of heavy things, like Amanda, you've gone through some heavy things in your life where others have been right there for you. Can you share about that time in your life where you and your husband were lost and how others helped you through that?
Yeah. So a little bit of background story about us. So we've been married since 2001. So we've been married for a long time. And in 2008, that's when we were in construction. My husband was working full time. I was a stay-at-home mom, and he came home and had lost his job. The market was crashing in 2008, if you guys know, and we had no idea what we were going to do. I had a 6-month-old at the time, and then my older daughter was 6, and so we just had no clue. We ended up losing our home and moving in with his parents, and financially, we had nothing. It was about 4 or 5 years for us to get back on our feet before we were able to move out of his parents' house and purchase our own home. In that time, we had, at least one more child in that time frame. I think 2 was, the second one was my 4th baby was on his way. So we were, stressed and stretched to the max financially. There was one year, my husband, we were doing our taxes, and he turned in 14 W-2s. And that's because it just didn't financially make sense for me to go back to work, because we couldn't afford daycare. And I don't have a college education. I don't have any sort of degree to stand on to make extra money. And 14 W-2s that year he turned in, trying to make ends meet. And then it was a moment in that time that he met somebody who encouraged him to get licensed in insurance. And here we are. I don't even know how many years it's been. 14 years. I'm like, I lose count. Here we are a decade later, and we are thriving. We are able to give back to our community. We're able to give back. But during that time in 2008, one of the stories I want to share is that my husband and I, we could not afford anything. 2 little babies at home, and we had some good friends who they would invite us out to dinner, and my husband would just respectfully decline. He'd be like, you know what, we would love to, we can't, like, just no big deal. It was okay. We weren't, trying to cause problems with it. And our friend just said, hey, let me just treat you to dinner. Come on, you guys haven't been out in a long time. And so we went out to dinner with them. And this did not happen once. This was probably a few years and multiple friends that supported us through this time, where it's really what got us through. And that also, this is also where Be the Good kind of has stemmed from, because when we were unfortunately not able to afford anything, I mean, anything, we had people show up for us in random ways. Like, we had a friend that invited us out to go camping, and even to go camping was a stretch. But yet they were like, it's fine. They're like, we're already buying groceries. I'll just buy a few extras. It's okay. And things like that, and we're all still friends today. Like, still really good friends with all of them today. And it's those moments when you're at very rock bottom that you realize how good the world and how good people really are. And that was a long time for us. It was a very tough time. In fact, I feel like I don't remember a lot of it. But this is one of those where be the good, see the good is so important, because a lot of what I do remember about those tough times is I remember seeing the good of what people showed up for us.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you are now building in the world with your legacy, that it's going to reach so far beyond even just your own family, but it's going to reach into the hearts of others who might not even, I love the idea of thinking that the person who I might smile at is a stranger in the parking lot, that's a ripple effect. They might not even know where it comes from, that
Yep.
helping the neighbor with your yard work, but without saying, oh, this is my, be the good challenge for the week.
Exactly.
And, but it's that ripple effect that people get to experience that good in the world, even when they don't know where it comes from. And that's such a beautiful legacy that you are creating and that you are leaving. So, man, it's just incredible to see, and for those that don't know you, I think it's fun actually to share that some of the things that Amanda was having as excuses that were holding her back in the beginning were things that we actually realized, like, actually, this is cool. Remember when we were going through your paperwork for your paperwork review, and in the section that talked about your college degree, where did you go to school?
Oh,
What's
yeah.
your college degree? Do you want to tell that story?
I was like, oh. Yeah. So on my original paperwork, I put, I can't, I would have to go back and
It
read
was
it.
like, it
I
was
think,
something.
I put School of Hard Knocks.
There it is. Yep. School of Hard Knocks.
That's what
Yeah.
it was. I put School of Hard Knocks. And then I put level reached was like level 5, because I have 5 kids. And so I've just always kind of not really been embarrassed that I don't have a college degree, but it's been more, I just kind of play humor off of it, because my husband and I now run, this massive business, this $1 million business, but yet I don't have anything beyond a high school education. And so sometimes people are like, well, how did you even reach that? How did you get that far? And I've just always kind of made it humorous. And you were the first person to just say, no, literally just tell them, say, no, you didn't have time. You got married, you had babies, and it wasn't something that you had time to do. And I finally was like, oh, I need to be proud that I am who I am, and not kind of embarrassed about it. And that was good for me. That was a really good moment for me.
Yeah, it's that moment, that opportunity to see yourself in a new way instead of feeling like, oh, I have to
Yeah.
make a joke about this, or this is going to be the thing that people are like, oh, well, if only she had a
Right.
college degree. But really, how epic that
Yep.
you were able to meet the love of your life when you did, that you were able to start a family and grow
Right.
a family of 5, like, or 5 children,
Yep.
7, and then to run your household. And I remember asking you, you were like, oh, so do I put, like, I'm the CEO of the household? And I was like, well, aren't you? And you were like, yes, I manage
Yeah.
the schedules. I manage the social thing. I'm the one that sends the cards. I'm the one that does all the things.
Yeah.
I'm the one that has the calendar. And I'm like, and I bet you have systems for everything. And you're like, yes, I do. And by the way, for those of you that missed it, she did say $1 million business. Okay.
Yep.
So this is no small feat. So the things that you had to do in order to, like, if you hired somebody to do all of the things that you do for your home, it would be extremely expensive to pay that person to do it.
Oh man.
And
There's
they
no
wouldn't
way.
need a college degree to do it,
Yeah.
but they would need to have wisdom, they would need to have
Right.
insights, they would need to have energy, they would need to have the wherewithal to manage it all. And
Right.
it's what's great is that you've got that experience long before you won your title, so that
Yeah.
now adding the title, you're building it into the systems of your lifestyle that already exist. So
Exactly.
adding the title isn't going to make your whole life fall apart. For a lot of people,
Nope.
they're living on the edge anyway, and then
Right.
they wouldn't be able to handle a title. But as the CEO of your household, which you can back up because you actually
Yep.
are,
I am. Yeah.
yeah, that allows you to say, that listen, this is my life story and it is nothing to be ashamed of.
Right.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then I want to kind of like bring us full circle here, because I will never personally, as a coach, I will never forget this moment where we were on the phone and you had this breakthrough that to me seemed like, I was like, that's what we do. Like, this is what we do. We had already completed we'd gone through the branding aspects. We were
Right.
through, even, I believe it was when we were working on your paperwork at this time. And, and we'd already planned the promise proof plan, the heart story, all your sound bites and stuff. And we were
Yeah.
now in the phase where we were like, okay, how are we going to position this on paper? And you were like, I just do so much for my community. I give scholarships. We were like listing out like all the scholarships for youth sports. And you were like,
Uh-huh.
for this one, and for horse riding, and for bodybuilding, and for wrestling, and it was just like this long list. And all these
Huge.
pieces kind of came together. And it was this idea of pulling together your brand
Right.
into the bigger promise and the plan of how that will show up. And this is, of course, what we use to answer, why should you win? The answer is promise, proof,
Right.
plan.
Right.
And in that moment, like, I will never forget this. You were getting choked up on the phone and you're like, this, Alycia, this is what I needed. I can you share that so we can get it for your words?
Yes, and I will tell you. So, if you are lucky enough to get one-on-one coaching with Alycia, she records them for you. Which at the time at the first I was like, it's fine. But now there are certain breakthrough ones that specifically that honestly, I go back and it makes me teary because I listen to myself break through these barriers personally, not even about the pageant. It was just personal breakthroughs. And this was one of them. So, like I said, my resume for what I do for my community is long. I last year we probably, I think the total member donation for sports encompassing, so I'm talking, there's horseback riders, there's bodybuilders, there's cheer teams, football teams, lacrosse teams. Okay, hundreds of kids, like dozens of teams. It probably equaled 45-ish thousand dollars total. And so when I'm doing all my line item of what I do for the community, and then I also spend time at my church every Sunday watching the babies so that the moms and dads can go to class. I donate time to the Single Parent Project, and we do fundraisers every year for them, and we do a backpack drive. And then I have all of these things that are unrelated, but they are all a part of me and a part of my platform because in my mind, oh, and I feed the police officers. That's something else that I do all the time. So, okay, these big things that as a pageant, I want to share these with the judges. However, I knew that part of my problem is that I was almost too much. The judges are like, well, you're doing a lot. Like, you're doing too much. And to me, I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface. Like, no, like, we're going to take this and keep going, and we're going to get more volunteers, and we're going to build it. And I didn't understand how to take all of these little important items that I was doing and bring them all in one. And that's when we finally decided that this was actually part of also launching the podcast, was that the podcast was going to be the one item that brought everything together and kind of brought it all full circle. Now, I'm not saying that for you, for all everybody listening, it's not necessarily a podcast for you. That's what it was for mine. And I told Alycia back, she says, if you could, I kind of to the extent of if you could wave a magic wand and you could do whatever you wanted with no limitation, what would you do with your platform? And I said, honestly, I want to have a podcast that people can hop on and listen to and be inspired to do good things. And I I just always thought it was out of my reach. And so for me, when I finally was able to, when Alycia finally just said, this is it, this is what you need to do. And what we're going to do is you can keep doing all of those things. But then the idea is that you can interview people and you can bring their goodness into the podcast and create this whole community. Oh, I just got chills just saying it. It was the community and building the community, the Be the Good community. That is when I finally understood my vision. And it was something that in my head, I could see it, but I never understood how to voice it out and to explain it to anyone. And so when she and I finally nailed it down and she says, we're going to build the Be the Good community, it was like a light bulb just went off in my heart. And I was like, that's it. That I'm like, I really am getting emotional just talking about it, because that is my whole goal, is to not do this on my own, is to bring everybody else with me to the table and to just keep building a bigger table every time we reach out.
This is, I know, I'm getting chills too.
I know. I
Just
was
like
like, I am like
reliving it.
literally tearing.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And like, gosh, what is so inspiring is the concept again of how you are like, I'm willing and I'm coachable. Just
Yeah.
show me the way. And
Yeah.
it is, I really believe that when our vision is so, 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 so big,
Yeah.
it's in your heart and it's there, but sometimes it takes somebody else to verbalize it before you realize like, oh, that's what I'm seeing, and that's
Yes.
where those chills come from. It's because it's living inside of you already.
Yes.
And when someone else says it, you're like, oh, yes, that's the
It was
thing.
such
Now
an
I have words
important
for
thing
it.
for me. Yeah. It was such an important thing for me that my coach, which ended up being you, but you understood my vision. And that was a huge thing for me, because I had worked with another coach before and she did a great job with what her knowledge was. But I don't think she saw my vision quite the same way that I did. And so we ended up taking things a different route. And honestly, for me, I truly felt like you saw my vision. And every time you would pull it from me and you would just keep pulling it from me and pulling it from me, you're like, okay, go bigger. Okay, go bigger, go bigger. And that finally like opened me up to not seeing an end. And I finally was able to just let my heart drive me forward rather than feel like I had to live in this little box of explaining exactly everything I had to do. And the fact that you saw my vision for that and pushed and pulled it out of me was huge.
Thank you so much. Oh man, this is just, could you share a little bit about the next phase? So, what are you doing over the next few months as you're preparing for nationals?
Whew, we are fast and furious getting ready for nationals. I actually was super stressed because we only have 4 months to prepare. And then I found out we're one of the first states, and we are lucky to have 4 months. And everybody else only gets like 3 or 4 weeks because most of their state pageants are in June and July. So honestly, right now, I really am on my heart right now is, where do I want to take Be the Good on a national level? Because that ultimately is my goal. My goal is not to just stop with Utah. I want a national level. I want a world level. If we can instill this, I know that the cliche pageant is you want world peace, but it really is where I want to go with this, is if we can instill this on every level, I can't even imagine. I honestly, it just, it makes me so humbled to think that something so small and something so just ingrained in me could actually make such a big difference for people. And so that's where I'm at right now is I honestly am just trying to broaden my horizons and still be able to show up for my own local community because I love my local community here. We do a lot. I'm doing a clothing drive right now to sponsor kids for football. I'm getting ready for a gala for Single Parent Project we're doing in September. So I still have a lot of local stuff going on. But yeah, right now it's just where can we take this on a national level outside of the podcast? It's just we're going to grow the podcast. We're going to continue to be the good challenge, but we're going to push and expand into a
Yeah.
national level.
Yeah. And it's I love hearing you say this with such peace because I think a lot of times the what people think happens is that you work real hard to win your state and then you think about what you're going to do next. And what's
Yep.
beautiful is that your legacy project already sets you up for even if you did compete next weekend, you could do it because the
Yes.
vision is that big. It's scalable to the entire world that people can,
Yeah.
right now, all over the world, they can already be a part of Be the Good Challenge on social media. They can follow the podcast. They can
Hmm.
get involved in all of these things in their local communities and with the work that you're doing. And that's by design that
Yep.
feels, easy. I'm not going to spill the beans because that's not for me to tell all the details. But I loved our vision on our reflection call a couple weeks ago, where we're
Yeah.
like, we're going big, and so I know what you mean by that. But we don't need to tell the whole world just yet. But I'm excited for what is coming for you. Gloria is asking if you. She said, "Did you work on your mindset?" And if so, could you share what part of mindset work made the biggest difference for you?
I don't have something that's like specific as far as like mantras or anything like that as far as my mindset, but yes, yes. I have been working on my own personal mindset for the last few years because I, so a little background on me, I don't work outside my home. I have been very blessed that my husband is the breadwinner and I don't work. However, I do work. I mean, I raise five babies and I run them to every single thing they do. I am their full time caretaker, but I'm also a huge part of our business. It's called Brady Insurance Marketing. But when I had my last baby, so she is now 5.5, when I had her and I was done with having kids, I fell into a huge, deep, dark hole of depression. And I did not know who I was. We've touched on like I had no college degree to fall on. I didn't know if I wanted to go back to work. I honestly had no idea who I was. And it was it was a long time, probably a couple years that I was not healthy. I was not healthy physically. I was not healthy mentally. And I almost lost my marriage because of it, because I wasn't in a good place. And I was reflecting that on my husband. And he, bless his heart, put up with me. And he was able to look at me and just say, I don't know what you need, but whatever it is, I am here to support it. And a long story short is I started doing bodybuilding competitions and physique bikini competitions, and then that led me into pageantry, which that is honestly where my mindset finally took hold, and I was able to understand who I was as a woman, and I was able to understand who I was as an individual outside of being a mom and a wife, because up until that point I truly didn't know that, like know who I was. And so as far as mindset specifically, like towards the pageant though, it was a moment, and it's been a year, well, it's been 4 or 5 years now of accepting myself for who I am, for my faults, and also diminishing limiting beliefs. which we kind of touched on. Like, that's why I hesitated to do the podcast. That's why I've hesitated to do a lot of things, is because I was like, well, I'm just not smart enough. I am not organized enough. I am not whatever. Or the other one that I've tried to get rid of is should. Is, oh, I should have worked out today. Oh, I shouldn't have eaten this. Oh, I should have. Bleh. Stop shoulding yourself. That was one of the best comments I ever heard from. I can't remember what influencer said it, but it was just a moment of, I can't I can't redo life. I am who I am because of the trials I went through. And it was a moment of, I don't need to look down on myself because I wasn't perfect today. Because guess what? I never am perfect. And I knew, as far as the pageant goes, sorry, and I know I'm rambling on, but as far as the pageant goes, it wasn't about mindset as much as it was about, I had to dig deep of what I wanted to get out of the pageant other than the crown. Because we had 22 women competing and there's only two crowns. And it was a moment that I finally had to understand that I realized the pageant pushed me to be a better person. It pushed me out of my comfort zone. It pushed me in different ways of growth that without it, I would not be sitting here with this on my head, because I wouldn't be who I am had I not allowed myself to get past those blockages of that limiting belief of not thinking that I was not enough, or thinking I wasn't enough.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I actually didn't know that about you. That was an experience that you
Yeah.
had, and I appreciate you sharing that, and especially because it's a journey, and that's where I believe for
Yeah.
you, Amanda, that your wisdom comes from. I often say, I say this, that clarity comes from taking action. You don't get clarity and then you take action. You actually have to take
Right.
action, and that's what leads you into clarity and into understanding, and
Exactly.
and that mindset work is, you say it so beautifully. It's not like a mantra.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have like the cute saying that like motivates their day, and it's like it doesn't work like that. It's a to have a true transformation, it's a day in and day out
Right.
commitment to becoming a new person. And it's not an overnight, and it's not a mantra, and it's not a, blab it and grab it, and it's not a just write it on your mirror and it'll happen.
Right.
It's actually, you have to lean into the process as you did. And
Mm-hmm.
you truly, Amanda, this is something I respect so much about you, is that you have mountains of experience, gigantic piles of
Yeah.
golden experience. And experience isn't the same as practice. Practice is when you do something
Right.
over and over a million times correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Experience is when you've lived real life that goes
Yeah.
sideways many, many
Yeah.
times, and you still come out the other side. And you've done
Yeah.
that time, and you've shared so many of these touch points with us today. You've done it over and over and over. And the wisdom and the experience that you have from that is what makes you an excellent queen. It's
Oh,
what
thank
makes
you.
you a phenomenal leader of people,
Thank you.
because it's not just a pretty face with some good ideas and some fancy stuff. It's, you actually have the depth that I think the pageant industry craves, because we want to follow somebody that's done it, that's been in the
Thank you.
trenches. That's the only thing
Yeah.
anyone cares about anyway, right? It's
Yeah.
like we all can dress up and put on a crown. That's not it. What it
Right.
is what you have, Amanda, and it's what you bring to the title, which is all of this wisdom that you've collected from experience that's been not perfect. And I commend you for that. And I have so much respect for you with that, because of the things that you've overcome and the things that you've leaned into, been coachable with, and said, I guess I'm doing it. Let's go.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But one more piece of advice is
Yes.
that this is where I really was able to honestly take in my legacy project this year full circle. Was, I had a good friend who is also, she kind of does life coach, and but she's just a dear friend of mine, and I was talking with her, And she's like, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to do? And I said, honestly, I feel like I have so much more to give. And I don't know what that is, and I don't know how to do it. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. And she's like, so, and she worded it, and she kind of worded it back to me, and she said, so you want to live up to what you feel you have inside of you? And I'm like, yes. And that was a moment for me that I realized that it's okay. It's okay for me to be a mom and a wife, but also have my own big dreams too. And my family will also be okay when I achieve those big dreams. And when I finally took that to heart and I knew that I was able to do it all, well, for one, it happened. And that's, you really do have to allow yourself and take in God's grace and allow him to bless you, but you also have to be willing to accept those blessings, because I don't think last year I wasn't ready to accept them. I was not, and I've heard this from multiple title holders, and even on this week, like people talking, and God gives things to you when you're ready. And I know now, looking back over the course of last year, I know I wasn't ready. And so it's been a very humbling year for me of growth and not ever allowing that to diminish what I wanted.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh. Amanda, you are so special to me. I am so grateful to you for coming on the Jumpstart today and sharing about your experience and all of this wisdom and the aha moments so that you could be an inspiration to all of the ladies out there that feel called to a dream that
Yeah.
they want to see happen. All of your advice is applicable, pageantry or not. This is
Yeah.
what we live for, is to live under God's purpose and calling
Yep.
and step into that boldly. And you are a beautiful example of doing that. So I thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for joining us today. Thank you
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much.
Yes, Amanda, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that you absolutely loved that episode. You know, it's always my intention to bring you high quality, valuable pieces of information, whether it's interviews or step-by-step trainings. And one of the greatest places that we do this is inside of the Win a Pageant Academy. A team of coaches and myself work every single day to help women just like you achieve their dreams. Now, especially in the pageant industry, but I know that God is calling you to so much more, and that your pageant is just a stop along the way to an even greater success. If you see that vision for yourself and you think that we might be able to help you, I would love for you to visit winapageant.com/academy to see all that we can help you with through the Win a Pageant Academy. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me to see if this is a fit for you. We would love to work with you if you are a go-getter with a big vision to achieve something massive in this world. And if you just need somebody to hold your hand and guide you every step of the way, we would love to be that coach for you. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out. We would love to welcome you inside the Academy. winapageant.com/academy.